Let me ask you something, and I want you to be honest with yourself. You've probably sat next to a girl you really liked, heart racing, overthinking every single word, wondering, am I enough? You replay conversations in your head, you check your phone too often, you try to say the right thing, and somehow it still doesn't work the way you expected. So what's going on? Because here's the uncomfortable truth no one tells you. It's not that you're not attractive. It's not that you're not trying. It's that you're focusing on the wrong things. Most men are taught that attraction is about big moves, money, looks, status, or saying the perfect lines. But in reality, the thing women genuinely respond to is far more subtle. And that's exactly why 99% of men completely miss it. Let me make this simple. Have you ever noticed how some guys don't seem to try that hard, yet they naturally draw people in? They're not necessarily the richest, not the most handsome, not even the loudest, but there's something about them that feels different. That something is not magic. It's not luck either. It's behavior. Psychology shows that people are naturally drawn to emotional safety, authenticity, and consistency, not performance. When someone feels comfortable around you, when they don't feel judged, pressured, or confused, they relax. And when someone relaxes around you, attraction grows without force. But here's where most men get it wrong. Instead of creating that space, they do the opposite. They overcompensate. They chase validation. They try too hard to impress instead of connect. And ironically, that's what pushes women away. So the real question becomes, what is this one thing that most men don't do, but women genuinely love? It's not complicated, but it does require awareness. It requires you to shift from, how do I impress her, to, how do I make her feel comfortable being herself around me? And that's what we're going to break down in this video. Not in a complicated way, not in a dramatic way. Just real, practical behaviors you can actually understand and use in everyday life. Because once you get this right, everything changes. Your conversations feel easier. Your confidence feels real, not forced. And most importantly, you stop second-guessing yourself. So stay with me, because what you're about to learn, most men overlook for years. Let's start with a question. When you're talking to a girl you like, what's going on in your mind? Are you thinking, what should I say next? How do I sound interesting? Do I look confident enough? Exactly. Now, here's the problem. Your focus is on yourself, and that's where most men lose without even realizing it. Because while you're busy trying to impress, she's busy trying to figure out one thing. Does this person actually see me? There's a big difference. Psychologically, people are naturally drawn to those who make them feel understood. It's called emotional validation. When someone feels heard and seen, their brain literally associates that feeling with comfort and trust. So instead of asking, how do I impress her? Flip it to, do I understand her? Simple shift, huge impact. Let's make it practical. She tells you something about her day. Most guys either interrupt, give advice too quickly, or turn the conversation back to themselves. But what if you just paused and actually listened? What if you asked a follow-up question that shows you were paying attention? What if your response made her feel like what she said actually mattered? Now ask yourself, how often do people experience that? Not often. And that's exactly why it stands out. You don't need fancy words. You don't need to act perfect. You just need to be present. Because here's the truth most men avoid. Trying too hard to impress often feels fake, but being genuinely interested, that feels rare. So the next time you're in a conversation, don't rush to prove yourself. Slow down. Listen more than you speak. Respond, don't perform. And watch what happens. Because when a woman feels seen, she remembers you. Let me ask you something real quick. Why do you feel the need to fill every silence? Be honest. Is it because you're afraid she might get bored? Afraid she might lose interest? Afraid she might think you're awkward? Now here's the twist. What if that silence you're trying to avoid is actually the moment that builds attraction? Most men talk too much, not because they have more to say, but because they're uncomfortable with stillness. They rush to explain, to entertain, to prove their worth. But psychologically, silence does something powerful. It creates space. And in that space, two things happen. She starts to process you more deeply. You come across as more grounded and self-assured. Think about it. When someone is constantly talking, over-explaining, or trying to keep the conversation alive at all costs, it can feel a bit overwhelming. Not because they're bad, but because it feels like pressure. Now compare that to someone who speaks calmly, pauses, and isn't afraid of a quiet moment. Which one feels more confident? Exactly. Confidence is not loud. It's controlled. So instead of asking, "What else can I say?" ask yourself, "Can I be comfortable right here without forcing anything?" Let's make it practical. You say something, she responds. There's a pause. Instead of panicking, you hold eye contact, relax, maybe smile slightly. That moment, it communicates more than 1,000 words because it says, "I'm not trying to impress you. I'm comfortable being here." And that's rare. But let's be clear, this is not about becoming quiet or distant. It's about balance. Speak when you have something real to say. Pause when there's nothing to force. Because here's the truth most men don't realize. Talking more doesn't make you more interesting. Being intentional does. And sometimes, the most attractive thing you can say is nothing at all. Let's address something a lot of men say. Girls don't like nice guys. But is that really true? Or is it something easier to believe than facing the actual issue? Because here's the honest answer. It's not that you're too nice. It's that you're not being real. There's a difference. Being kind, respectful, and considerate, those are good qualities. But when nice becomes people-pleasing, hiding your opinions, or avoiding honesty just to be liked, it stops being attractive. Why? Because it feels unclear. And psychologically, people are drawn to clarity and consistency. When someone doesn't express what they truly think or feel, it creates confusion. Let me ask you, have you ever agreed with something you didn't actually agree with, just to avoid tension? Or laughed at something you didn't find funny, just to keep things smooth? Exactly. Now imagine how that comes across. It doesn't feel confident. It feels like you're adjusting yourself to fit in. Let's address something a lot of men say. Girls don't like nice guys. But is that really true? Or is it something easier to believe than facing the actual issue? Because here's the honest answer. It's not that you're too nice. It's that you're not being real. There's a difference. Being kind, respectful, and considerate, those are good qualities. But when nice becomes people-pleasing, hiding your opinions, or avoiding honesty just to be liked, it stops being attractive. Why? Because it feels unclear. And psychologically, people are drawn to clarity and consistency. When someone doesn't express what they truly think or feel, it creates confusion. Let me ask you, have you ever agreed with something you didn't actually agree with, just to avoid tension? Or laughed at something you didn't find funny, just to keep things smooth? Exactly. Now imagine how that comes across. It doesn't feel confident. It feels like you're adjusting yourself to fit in. Let me ask you something honestly. Why do you feel like you have to win her over? Think about that. Why does it feel like she's the prize, and you're the one trying to prove your worth? Because that mindset alone is what puts you at a disadvantage. Most men approach women from a position of chasing. They overtext, they overgive, they overexplain. Not because they're weak, but because they think that's what it takes. But here's the truth. Attraction isn't built through chasing. It's built through mutual interest. Psychologically, when someone feels like they are being chased too much, it can create pressure. And pressure often leads to emotional distance. Now flip it. Instead of asking, "How do I get her to like me?" ask, "Do I actually like her?" That one question changes everything. Because now, you're not trying to impress. You're observing. You're deciding. You're present. And that energy feels completely different. Let's make it practical. She cancels plans last minute. Most guys will immediately try to reschedule, double text, or act overly understanding just to keep her. But what if you paused and simply said, "No problem. Let me know when you're free." And then you go back to your life. No pressure, no chasing. That shows something powerful, self-respect. And self-respect is attractive because it signals that your life doesn't revolve around one person. Now, this doesn't mean being cold or playing games. It means having standards. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. If you're always available, always agreeing, always chasing, you remove the space for her to choose you. And attraction needs that space. So stop putting yourself in a position where you feel like you have to earn attention. You don't need to chase what is already interested. Start choosing instead of begging to be chosen. Let's talk about something most men avoid: your emotional reactions. Not your feelings, but how you handle them. Because this right here is where attraction is either built or broken. Let me ask you, when she takes longer to reply than usual, what happens in your mind? Do you stay calm? Or do you start overthinking, checking your phone, assuming the worst? Exactly. And that reaction? It shows. Maybe not directly, but in your tone, your energy, your next message. Now, here's the reality. Emotional stability is one of the most attractive traits a person can have. Not because it's flashy, but because it feels safe. Psychology backs this up. People are drawn to those who are predictable in a calm way, not reactive or easily shaken. Because it answers an important question: can I relax around this person? So this isn't about not caring. It's about not losing control over small things. Let's make it simple. She doesn't reply for hours. Instead of sending multiple messages or overthinking, you continue your day. You focus on your work, your goals, your life, because your mood is not dependent on one person's response time. That's emotional control. And here's the truth most men need to hear. If your emotions go up and down based on her behavior, you're giving away your power without realizing it. Now, this doesn't mean being cold or distant. You can care, but still remain grounded. You can like someone, but still have control over your reactions. And that balance? That's what stands out. So here's a small reality check. Calmness is not weakness. Patience is not boring. And control is not unattractive. In fact, it's the opposite. Because when you are steady, you become someone people can actually trust and feel comfortable around. And in the end, that's what keeps attraction alive. Let me say something, and I know this might be controversial. As a woman, it's not the guy who tries the hardest that stands out. It's the one who feels the most real. And I don't mean perfect. I don't mean rich. I don't even mean the most confident guy in the room. I mean the one who doesn't make me feel like I have to perform or figure him out, the one who listens without rushing, the one who doesn't panic in silence, the one who isn't afraid to be honest, even if it's not the perfect answer. Because that's what creates comfort. And when there's comfort, there's connection. So if you've been thinking, maybe I need to do more, maybe the truth is, you need to do less. Less overthinking, less performing, less trying to be someone you think will be accepted, and just be present. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever tried being more real instead of trying to impress? What changed for you? Drop your experience in the comments. I actually read them, and I'd love to connect with you and hear your story. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about changing who you are. It's about finally showing up as that person, clearly, calmly, and confidently.